Now, let's get back to vaping. It's often portrayed as the cigarette replacement that could save thousands of lives. But the health risks from vaping are in the spotlight in the United States right now because at least 20 people have died and more than 450 cases of lung illnesses have been linked to this habit. Well, Britain is the second biggest market for vaping, with British people spending over £1 billion on products every year. So we're asking this morning, just how worried should we be about vaping, and is it really safe? Joining Neil and I in the studio now from Birmingham to discuss this, Dr. Aaron Scott, a lecturer in respiratory science at the University of Birmingham, and here in the studio, Director of the UK Vaping Industry Association, John Dunne. Good morning to you both. OK, I'll come to you, Dr. Aaron, first, if I may. It's interesting because the USA has a very different attitude to vaping than the UK. In the USA, it's more of a lifestyle choice. Here, it's being sold as a bridgeway between cigarettes and coming out of a smoking completely. But are people not taking on board the risks because it's seen as better than smoking?
Well, Public Health England have taken a very strong standpoint here in the UK. They've supported the use of e-cigarettes in all demographics as a smoking cessation aid. But what they've done in the United States is to prioritise protecting the younger demographics. These are people who were never smokers. These are people who took up vaping de novo, and it's had some ramifications. Here in the United Kingdom, we have prioritised people quitting tobacco, but they're not actually quitting nicotine. They're just using these devices as a continuous nicotine delivery system. I think that's an issue. If you use them in the short term, you can use them to quit tobacco quite effectively, and it's been shown to be more effective than traditional therapies such as gums and patches. But if you continue to use them, then you open yourself up to further risks. Less cancer risk, but still risk of particular lung diseases further on down the line, which we've yet to characterise. So if you use them transiently, they can be a safer method, but long-term use is not safe.
John, you're representing the vaping industry, and you've said vaping is safe. But, you know, we've got an NHS professional, we've got a respiratory expert saying that actually there are risks associated. And this news coming out of the United States of illnesses and deaths linked to vaping must be very worrying for you. Well,
the first thing, there's lots of moving parts to this story. So one of the things that your viewers have really got to understand is the situation in the States is very different than it is here. These people are using a different type of liquid. So what they're using is a liquid that contains THC, which is an illegal drug in many parts of the US. It's also suspended in an MTC oil, which when vaped causes damage. So this is not the same e-liquids that contain nicotine that people are buying in stores here.
Doctor, let's just pick up on that, because it is true to say, isn't it, that the cases where fatalities have been identified are different from the kind of the VG, PG suspension methods that are generally used here. But that doesn't in and of itself necessarily mean that there isn't any risk to the way in which we vape predominantly in this country.
Indeed, there are a lot of differences between the e-cigarette liquid available in the United Kingdom and the United States. Here we're regulated by the Tobacco Products Directive, so that limits the amount of nicotine we're allowed to put into the e-cigarette liquids, and limits them in terms of quality control for manufacturing purposes. But in the United States and here, people are free to modify those liquids in whatever way they want. And whilst a high proportion of the people have been using THC-containing products, not all of those cases of e-cigarette related or associated lung disease have been linked to THC. So there is a baseline effect of e-cigarettes. In our research, we have shown that it causes a pro-inflammatory response in the lungs, so very similar to what you'd see from cigarette smoke exposure. I mean, as I said, there's much lower risk of cancer and carcinogen exposure, but there are harmful effects of e-cigarette liquids. And you can't skate over that by just saying, oh, it's all THC, it's all MTC, it's all vitamin E acetate.
The screen's frozen there on Dr. Aaron, but we got a sense of what he was trying to put across. John, are you sort of skating across the big issue here? Because common sense would tell you that anything that goes into your lungs that's not fresh air is not good for you. We talk about problems related to air pollution, doctors seeing that a lot more. And vaping is a new industry, so we haven't got the decades of experience that we have with smoking to really understand what people are doing to their bodies.
Well, first of all, I agree with the doctor that if you don't smoke, you shouldn't be taking up vaping. Vaping is designed for people who smoke. So that's the first point. The second point is nobody is saying that vaping is 100% safe. But what we do know is that if you continue to smoke, you will probably die. That's what we know, that's fact. So what Public Health England is saying that compared to smoking, that vaping is at least 95% less harmful. They don't say it's safe, they say it's less harmful than smoking.
So it shouldn't be done long term then, because we are hearing stories of people who take up vaping to quit smoking and are vaping years later.
Yeah, and as you mentioned in the introduction to this, it's £1 billion industry and it's getting bigger here in the United Kingdom. You're the industry representative. Right. You're not telling me that everyone who's doing it in the UK is doing it as a smoking cessation technique.
No, and there's two different subsets of people that use vaping. Some people want to stop using nicotine at all, but some people like the effects that nicotine have, and there are some positive benefits to nicotine. But what they've looked at here in this country is that the most important thing is to get people to stop smoking, and 3.6 million people in the UK have used electronic cigarettes successfully to quit smoking. It's twice as effective as all other forms of nicotine replacement therapies available. And we've had no issues in this country that they're seeing in the US. So the doctor referred to as some of the cases in the US are related to THC. The CDC has come out so far and said 85% of the cases are directly linked to that. And this is a self-reporting issue. So you've got to understand that a lot of these people are doing something that's illegal, and it really will affect their lives if they turn around and admit they've been using an illegal drug. So, you know, some of the cases where people have said, oh, I've only vaped nicotine, have been proven that, you know, through testing that they actually were using THC.
Doctor, it's interesting, isn't it? We were discussing this with Dr. Ellie Cannon, NHS GP, in the studio a little earlier on the programme, and we were discussing the attitude to smoking, that people seem to approach it from the attitude of it's really difficult to give up. Should the NHS take the other point of view and go, it's actually easy to give up? Because you do hear of people that just give up overnight, or they can read a book to sort of help them cope with, you know, breaking the bad habits. Should the NHS just change its approach, do you think?
It's definitely not easy to give up cigarettes. Nicotine is very addictive, no matter what form you get it in. You get it from normal tobacco cigarettes, you get it from e-cigarettes and e-liquid. It's not an easy drug to give up. If you move from cigarettes to e-cigarettes, you're still addicted to nicotine. That's why they've tried to advise them as cessation. You should use them transiently to give up nicotine, not just tobacco. There are no positive effects of nicotine other than a transient high. It causes pro-inflammatory effects, causes negative effects on your airways, it causes negative effects on your immune system and throughout your body. To say there is some positive aspect of nicotine addiction, it's baffling to me. I would like to point out as well that the 95% safer figure is spurious. There's no evidence to support that. And that's not supported by different regions within the UK, only by Public Health England. Public health agencies in Wales and charities in Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland, all are much more sceptical of e-cigarettes because there are no positive benefits to use of nicotine.
OK, Dr. Aaron Scott, lecturer in respiratory science at the University of Birmingham, and John Dunne from the UK Vaping Industry Association, thank you very much. Discussing the dangers of vaping, the benefits of vaping. Keep your views coming in at Sky News #Sunrise. Still to come on the